Step Into Your Life with Julianne Williams. The show Step Into Your Life was really brought to light to help highlight topics that bring joy and help enrich lives. And in this, I have a really special guest today. Her name is Annette Kruschek, and she is one of the co-authors of the best-selling book, You Can, You Will, and her chapter is called My Tiny Teacher. And she's going to tell you all about that. But it's really interesting. Annette and I met as a part of this book and found that we had so many things in common. And one of those things that we are advocates for people who are born with congenital heart defects. I was born with a heart defect called tetrologyoffallot, and I had heart surgery when I was 5. And I have lived my life with this particular health problem, but also other things that have come about, because there are more things that happen when you have congenital heart defects. It affects your whole body, but importantly, it also affects your mind. And we are going to talk today again about Annette's story. You are going to be so impressed and just amazed by the compassion and love that Annette has for her family. And you'll learn about the family dynamic that is, again, so incredible. The story of her daughter, Evelyn, and how Evelyn and I actually have something in common. So with that, Annette, I want to turn it over to you so that you can introduce yourself and your story and tell us about your tiny teacher.
Thank you, Julianne. Thank you for allowing me this platform to talk about my children currently living with congenital heart defects. I am a mother of 8. I am a wife to a husband of 25 years, and we have 4 biological kids, 4 adopted children, and 3 of which have congenital heart defects, very complex heart issues. I wrote my story, my chapter, as Julianne said, in honor of my daughter, Evelyn, and it's called My Tiny Teacher, because Evelyn, at the age of 4 years old, tragically and unexpectedly passed away. And this happened 2 years ago on February 25th, 2021. And I have learned through the process of my grief that Evelyn's heart defect, along with my daughter Clara and my son Louis, well, it was very complex. Through those heart defects, my little girl who was 4 ended up teaching me so many life lessons, more than I could have taught her, more than the doctors actually were learning about Evelyn. She was, in fact, teaching and paving the way. So it's my privilege to talk about my children today, and I think it's just fantastic that Julianne and I got to meet because we have this unique relationship. I am the mother of children living with heart defects, while Julianne is the adult now living with that. It gives me this bird's eye view of my children as they get older, what is to come, and things that I don't understand necessarily. I am on the parent side of things. So this meeting of the hearts, I call it, between you and I, Julianne, has been really a godsend, and I am so grateful.
Well, you know, it's interesting because we had no idea when we met. It was actually at the end of our conversation when we made the connection about what our true heart to heart really is. And I have learned so much from you. And I know that my parents had to make really hard decisions when I was little. I hope that I inspire hope for you and Louis and Clara, because I was able to now live to a much older age to show that it's possible. The one thing I know is God has had his hand on me from the minute I was born, because I've overcome so many obstacles. And I watch your children who are just full of life, the pictures, the videos, And I know they have overcome so many obstacles. What is it like? So first of all, I think if people didn't recognize this part of what you said, you and your husband adopted children on purpose that had heart defects, knowing that you were starting this road with them for the rest of their life with that challenge. My parents, I was born and they're like, whoops, sorry, there's something wrong with her.
Yes.
What love to choose a child who needs that extra. Because when you do have a defect, you do feel defective. And so for me, I see your heart, and it just is incredible to make a choice to walk a child through that. You purposely adopted children who needed your extra help.
And with that, I say, we are all born. Maybe you can't see our health issues. Maybe we don't have medical issues, but we are all born with something that is a challenge in life, whether it be depression, whether it be anxiety. We are all born with that. And I guess I always say we didn't look seeking children with heart disease. I just believe that they were brought to us. I take zero credit. I don't, a lot of people say they're the lucky ones. Oh my goodness, no, we are the lucky ones for sure, because we won the lottery with all 8 of my children. My biological kids, while they don't have any heart defects, they are learning the importance of caring for people. My oldest daughter, I remember she was leaving for college, and we had 2 kids, Claire and Lewis, were both going through their Fontan surgeries a week apart. Now, a Fontan surgery, it's that 3rd surgery. My kids have what's called a single ventricle. So there is no cure for what they have. It's considered palliative. And as my kids get older, the function of their heart, it may slow down, and it may be one of these where the only thing available will be a heart transplant. But again, I can't choose what tomorrow brings, nor can any of us. And so our family, we don't live recklessly, but we live by pure faith and by pure joy, knowing that each day is a gift. But again, I like my daughter who's getting ready to go to college. We asked her if she could stop her summer job. We could pay her. And she took care of the other kids while my husband and I were inpatient, because we had 2 kids in the ICU and they shared a room together. Very unconventional. It was the first time our hospital had ever done it. And then we adopted Evie, and I know there were a lot of people that thought, what are you doing? And again, we didn't feel like we were being reckless. We just felt like God has placed this on our heart. And while I'm not a medical physician, I am a mother, and I am a prayer warrior, and I believe in the power of prayer. And so we moved forward with adopting Evelyn, and Evelyn has what's called a single ventricle as well. However, she also has a number of other things. Heterotaxy. She was born without a spleen. Her stomach was on the opposite side. She was born with an ear deformancy. She had a G tube, so she was a full-time tube fed. But this did not stop my tiny teacher from giving us the biggest of life lessons.
So tell us more about Evie, because she is definitely a big, big light. Her smile and her eyes just light up, and you just want to kind of like hug her. And tell us about her 4 years on this earth and how you found her. And the story is just,
it is.
Yeah.
I call it one of the greatest love stories. And I don't want to take away from your story, Julianne.
This is about Evie and you.
I'm giving me this platform. It makes me so proud because after Evie passed, I've said to people that at her funeral privately, I said, I will make her proud and I will not allow her death to define my life. And actually, her death has pushed me to I call it the ledge, to say, jump, mom, you can do this. I know you can do this. I've always wanted to write a book. I've been blogging for 10 years. And so this gave me that platform to really go and do it. Now, Evie, when we adopted her, she was 16 months old. Actually, I'm sorry, she was 18 months old, 16 pounds, very, very malnourished. And she was bald on the back of her head. When my husband went to China with my son and my brother and my mother-in-law, he sent me a video of them in China. And I was so surprised. I almost didn't believe it was the pictures that we saw of her before they traveled, because she was so malnourished and she had no muscle tone. So she was just laying in a hotel on a bed. But my husband was just amazing, because when we got the referral, when you're in the adoption world, someone will call you and say, we have a child that is needing to be adopted. It's very rare that you have a healthy child, a female child that is 18 months old that needs to be adopted. And so when my agency called me, they said, Annette, she has some severe medical issues. And I said, and I knew it was going to be a heart issue. And as she was explaining it to me, I said, oh my gosh, my husband's getting on a plane right now. Can you please send me her file, the information? And I'm literally in a little bathroom in my house, because all my other kids, I was laying them down for bed. And I texted my husband as he's getting on the plane, and he said, quick, send me it. I'm about ready to take off. And as I sent it to him, he said, I can't see her picture. I cannot even see the file. I'm all in. Now, who does that but a husband with a fatherly love for a child? And so at that point, we just said yes. And he hadn't even seen her picture. And so it was just go, go, go from that point on. And 3 months later, she landed here in the US. And she had 3 very, very risky heart surgeries. So risky that the doctors made the surgeries specifically to Evie, because they couldn't compare her to any other child, because she was so unique. And we knew going into each surgery, we may not have her afterwards, but after each surgery, she survived. And I said she was my mountain climber. She climbed every mountain, and she kept gathering people along the way up the mountain. She collected people by her tenacity and her strong will and her love for life. And boy, I am honored to be her mom, whether it was 40 years or 4 years or 3 years. It's been such an honor to have her, to be her mom.
You know, one thing that struck me as you and I have gotten to know one another about this story, every step of it is incredible. It is just the biggest demonstration of love, unconditional love. I remember you talking to me about the fact that one thing that touched your heart was that she was not wanted, that she was the have not.
The outcast.
Yes.
Yeah. And she has taught me so much through that, because that is where the little teacher comes into play. don't we all as human beings sometimes feel like the have-nots, the misfit, the outcast in life? And people can look at, the outside picture of you and say, wow, they have it all together. But that isn't the case. And I identified with my 4-year-old daughter because it took me back to middle school when they would pick teams for Phi Ed, and they would have the two kind of popular kids be the captains. And then I even wrote a post about this, that they would gather their kids, and then all of a sudden you dwindle down to the misfits, the outcasts, the have-nots, and there would be me. And it was like a bargaining tool. Well, I'll take Annette if you do that one. And I just smiled, but I hated every second of it. And now I won't say the doctors looked at Evie as like, well, they believed in her, but I saw that kind of like, oh, Annette, I just don't know. Oh, Dan, I don't know if this is going to be possible. But Evie proved to them. And through her collecting all these people, it made me believe in myself to say, we're all outcasts at times in our life. But that cannot define us. And I've said to people, since the death of my child, and I will say the death of my mother, my father, and my brother, they all happened within 10 years of each other. But recently my mom passed and my brother passed soon together. I don't fear a lot in life anymore. And because my greatest fear in life was death of a loved one. And I believe God put that there. And I believe it is my job now to lift people up and give them this heightened awareness of your purpose in life. Like, you can do these things, people. You have one life. And if we make a mistake, we make a mistake, but go get it. And meeting you, Julianne, has been just this beautiful gift. And I don't say that like that phrase of a gift, but it is like, I look at you and I am so thankful because you are my hope. I look at you as this go-getter and I say, that is what is going to come of my kids. Clara and Lewis have so much hope. And I look at you as that mirror to me. And I thank you so much for that.
Well, and I just love them, even though I've only seen them on Zoom. I love them because I have at least an understanding. I mean, we never know because we're not that person, but I can definitely identify with some of the challenges when you're that child that has the continuous problem. It's something that I actually haven't talked to a lot of people about. I really have not shared a lot about what it is like to live with a chronic health condition. Mm-hmm. I've shared a lot about grief. Losing my husband to suicide. I've shared a lot about raising my kids on my own and the challenges that came with that, with all of the grief that we experienced together. But I haven't talked a lot about growing up and living my entire life with a health condition, because that's really how it all started. And I don't know any different. So when I think of Lewis and Clara and Evie, there are things that maybe people don't understand that can be applied not just to children, but to anyone who is in the middle of a condition that started no matter when, but it's not going to go away.
Yes.
For me, there's always a nagging feeling or dread in your mind, because you know that you're fragile. You know that life is fragile. Mm-hmm. You know, there were many, many years, and probably even now, but not so much, I've learned to manage it better, that every night when I went to sleep, I was afraid I would not wake up from being a very small child. Wow. So there's a lot of fear when you have a chronic health condition. And I think that's true, again, no matter how old you are. Mm-hmm. You also do feel very different. I mean, and that's what you noticed when we right away. I didn't mention, you were telling me your story, but I did not mention my story. And you said, hey, what's that at the very end? What is that scar on your chest? And, now I'm grateful for the scar on my chest. It is what caused me to be here right now. But growing up, I felt very self-conscious. And I didn't think that, anyone would think I was pretty or, whatever it is, because, I had a scar and I was different. I had freckles and all of these things were highlighted for me in terms of my appearance, I think, because I felt insecure from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's something that Clara and Lewis experienced, but I'm sure somebody has. And,
Yes.
and I hope if anybody's listening who has had this experience or going through this experience or lives this experience, it takes a lot to overcome feeling so different. And also just that you're always at the doctor and
Yes.
you're always having tests done. And then there's always something else wrong. And I feel like I have overcome, my heart issue. I mean, it never ends, but, to a good place with it. Then I had a blood disorder. Then I had scoliosis. And it's just on and on and on. And cataracts at a very, very young age. All these things that seem to happen when you have a health condition, it affects the rest of your body. And so you're in this continuous medical loop. Probably most people don't know that about me.
I think I guess from my standpoint too, when I'm listening to all of this, did you ever let your mom know about some of your worries, or did you try to protect your mom because you didn't want her to worry?
I think I probably maybe mentioned it once or twice, but what I did is I developed this sort of shell or wall that I was strong. There was nothing wrong with me to the outside world, so that nobody knew what was happening in here and in here, that I was really suffering, trying to find my way. And in doing that, what I did is became an overachiever, graduated valedictorian of high school, 8th grade, with honors from college. Everything I did, I threw myself into full force because I wanted to show people that I was just as good as they were, even though I was flawed from the beginning.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that, because my son, who's 9, and Clara, who is 9, they were adopted at different times. They're 5 days apart. Oddly, they have the same congenital heart defect. But Lewis he likes to go to bed with his clothes on for the next day for school. I've decided that's a battle I'm not going to worry about. Bigger fish to fry in life. So, but it's about control. He wants to know what he's going to eat for breakfast. Is there going to be enough for everybody? He wears his watch, he has his alarm set. And I realized it's control. He needs control over some things because he knows his heart is something he can't control. And certainly I will never know what it feels like to have their complex hearts, nor do I know what it feels like to lose a sibling to a heart defect. My brother lost his life to alcoholism, not a heart defect. And so I look at Evelyn passed because she had a similar heart defect. And so that is very much in their face for the rest of their life. And so it is this tightrope that I walk as a mom to make them understand the severity of their heart condition, but at the same time live life. So you just saying what you said was really eye-opening to me, because when he can't sleep at night, I'm sure there's certain things going on in his mind, and it's not just him, a hamster on a wheel. There's worries, obviously.
I know that my parents went through a lot. They made me feel like I was normal. So let me say too, that the one thing that they worked very hard to do is to treat me the same as my siblings. However, I also know, and we talked about this, that there is a family dynamic that probably is inherent in having someone who's got a chronic illness, as a part of your family. And so the person who is going through the health issue is affected in some ways I just shared, but also I know that my siblings were too, because they always had the sick sister and the sister that had to go to the doctor. And, and there was probably a bright light of attention on all this, more than I probably even saw, because I didn't have the same experience that they did because I was not them. Whereas I'm battling my own fear, my own insecurities, my own everything. They're also probably battling things as a sibling, and as another child that you and I have talked about. And as a mom, that has to be a challenge. And I bet my parents felt challenged during our growing up as well, to make sure that that they were meeting everybody's needs.
It is that balance. And that's where my tiny teacher comes into play, because having Evelyn, we all rallied together, the whole family. My husband said something that was so beautiful. And he said, maybe it's as if she knew her time here on earth was short. So she expected all of us to give everything to her. Oh. And we did. I mean, we could get frustrated, but my son Isaac would carry her up a hill, even though she could walk, to go sledding. My other son would hear her crying in the other room, not because she was hurt. It was because it was Evie and she demanded our attention. He would stop and he would go to her. My 23-year-old son took her to go get ice cream for breakfast one time. And so now when he visits her cemetery, her plot, or at the cemetery, he takes a little ice cream cone there. I let her dance on the kitchen table. I mean, I let her do anything.
I think there's a video of that.
Yes, because it was for Evie. But I guess
we'll have to see if we can get a clip of that while we're talking.
Yeah. And it was on her birthday, and it was so beautiful. She brought dancing and life into the family, but it was her short time here on earth that after she passed, I realized, wow, I have all of these children that are aching, whether it's from a heart condition or literally a broken heart.
Yes. And
it has taken me Evie's passing to really focus. And I can't change how I parented before this, but it certainly makes me be very, very mindful of my kids that don't have heart defects, and say, how can I tap into what you need? Because they are broken in so many different ways.
Yes. I mean, the love that you see in the pictures, everyone will see, and your family is just,
it's unique.
But you can just see the love. And so it's I think it's an incredible gift on both ways, obviously for those children that you chose.
Yeah.
And then the children that God gave you, naturally, the way they've come together is a testament, though, to the love that you have in your household, but also, just the parenting challenges that I know you go through. So what, for parents who have children who are biological and adopted, are there any tips and obviously health conditions, whatever, what are some of the things that you've learned that you could share that you're using to balance some of the demands that you are under every day?
I say patience, apologize when you maybe act too abruptly, allow your children to see you make mistakes, and then say, I'm sorry, because that is so human for all of us. I know for me, when I am fearful, I get really just high strung, but it's all fear-based because I can't control the upcoming surgery. I can't control, oh gosh, this Phy Ed class, they might be running too much and now I need to figure this out. And so I guess for me, balancing is I'm mindful of the time that I have with my kids, and I take those few minutes a day now with 8 kids and 2 adult kids. It's very different. But as far as Lewis, with his nervousness, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 8 o'clock, it's called our talk. And it's before bed, and it's 15 minutes. He can lay next to me and tell me any worry he has. And it could be just a simple worry like, Mom, I'm having a hard time tying my shoes or something like that. But then when he goes to bed, he feels more grounded. And then it's something that he knows there's no interruption. And then I'm doing that along with my kids without heart defects. After we're done talking, I'm going to go fishing with my 16-year-old son. Just grabbing a little bit of time with each of your kids, and doesn't have to be an extravagant meal. It doesn't have to be going to buy the next greatest Xbox game. It literally is just eye-to-eye contact talking.
Witnessing their.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we all want to be witnessed. We all want to be, I that's the thing right now, seen and heard, but really it's important. I call it witnessing.
I love that.
So
it's you're saying you see them, and that is so important, because sometimes kids just think parents are on autopilot and we're just doing our thing. But if we stop to say, I witnessed something, wow, that's meaningful.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's just words. And, as parents, we do the best we can in the moment. We all make mistakes.
Yeah.
We learn every day. There's no book on parenting. There's a lot of books about parenting, but there's no book on the child that each one of us is parenting.
Yeah.
That's at least what I believe with parenting my children. And we're never prepared for all the things that life throws at us. So you can read a book on all the theory, and I have a degree in psychology, so I know a little bit, probably just enough to be dangerous, to be honest. But there are a lot of theories, but we're never prepared for the practical application, because we don't know what life is going to be throwing at us with the child that we're raising, and how that situation will affect them, because it obviously affects them differently than it even affects us as their parent.
Definitely. I mean, I'm thinking right now about, I went into this adopting thinking I'm embarrassed. I'm thinking, our first adoption from Korea, our daughter who's now 12, I was thinking, this is just going to be so beautiful. I'm going to bring her home. Well, she's not this affectionate person. There is nothing wrong with that. But it took me years to realize her love language is not through touch. Her love language is by sitting down and doing a science project together, or going outside and looking at bugs. You have to learn your child's love language, and it is different for every single one. And I think for me personally, I was just beating my head against the wall saying, this worked with my other kids. Why isn't this working? We're all different. Biological, adopted, health issues, no health issues. We are all different.
Yes. So as a parent who has lost a child, and speaking to other parents who have lost a child, which I know you have really been able to reframe in a way to honor Evie, but I know your grief is so significant because we've talked about that, and there's no way it couldn't be. What are some of the things that you could share that have lifted you in the way that you can move forward to honor Evie?
Yeah. So I say prayer for me is I pray with expectation that I know eventually my prayers will be answered. If I say they'll be answered tomorrow, I'm just a fool, but I pray every day because I want peace. I know I will forever walk with this very sad heart. But the relationships that I have with my husband and my children, boy, is it hard right now. We are all intact. And I just keep saying, please, Evie, please, God, just keep us all intact, because the goal is just to hold everybody close. But it is not easy. My husband and I have been married for 25 years. I consider him my best friend, and I would believe he'd say the same thing, but we grieve very differently. And he wants to be more quiet. I need more words of affirmation. And I'm realizing I can't always expect him to give me what I need. And so I have built up a community of friends that have also lost a child, and that has been very helpful. Writing my book, writing this chapter has allowed me to purge my feelings. We moved to the country and we have animals, and those animals have been therapy for my kids. Every day is a new day. And I just say, we're here for a reason. And so when I put my feet onto the ground after I roll out of bed, and it's the scariest thing I say, but I do say this: whatever your will is, God, I will follow it. And then I buckle my seatbelt, because it is the scariest thing. In every argument, there should be someone that's right and there's someone that's wrong. But a death of a child, a death of a spouse, a death of a sibling, it is terrible. And there is no winner in this situation, just like there's going to be no winner in this argument. And so sometimes I've realized the best thing to do is just say, I think we need to just kind of go to our own special places right now and just be on our own for a little bit. Give each other the respect to have that space. And my husband and I leave each other sticky notes. And that's kind of our love language to each other, to say, kind of like, sorry, maybe that was a moment that wasn't the most beautiful, or we snapped together. And there'll be a little sticky note. In fact, there was just one on my mirror in the bathroom, and it said, I still love you no matter what. And I'll write it back on there, that little sticky note, and then I'll plant it someplace in his office. It's cheesy, it's free, that's what it's all about.
Well, and again, just because I like to help people have strategies through grieving, because first of all, we never stop grieving. How can we stop grieving someone who is not coming back? We can't.
Yes.
Grieve as long as you love, and love doesn't end.
Yes.
So I like to throw out strategies that people use that at least give them a moment of joy, because the more moments of joy we have, we're able to see that there is a path to peace. And that, peace doesn't mean you've forgotten or you're less sad. It just means that you found a way to cope better and to integrate the loss into your life. And I think those are really sweet things that bond you and keep you connected with one another, because we cannot grieve without connection.
You're right. I want everybody to know what you said is so important, because I remember the first time smiling and laughing. I had a sleepover with my friends from 7th grade. They've been my best girlfriends. And I woke up the next day and I felt such guilt, and I started crying to one of my friends. Like, I feel like a terrible mom. All of a sudden, here I am. I was laughing the night before. How could I laugh? Because this is the saddest thing a mom could ever go through. And that's why they're my best friends, because they said, you're honoring her by laughing, by allowing yourself. People say to me, and I guess it's a hard thing for me, they would say, well, what would Evie want? Mm-hmm. And this part of the mom in me, it goes against everything probably a lot of people think. Evie in my mind will always be for. And Evie was very egocentric. It was all about Evie. So what would Evie want? She would want me to constantly be thinking about her. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, Evie emitted love, tons of love. And that's what I'm supposed to do. just give love the way she gave love.
And so my last question for my guests is always, how did you step into your life? And I think you're processing that, but I love what you just said about it's all about love. But
Yeah.
how did you step into your life? Or you can either say, how did you step into the life of choosing to parent 8 children? Or how did you step into your life of moving through your grief and to where you are now, whatever you want to share for people to think about that has enriched your life?
Okay. The first thing that came to my mind is I stepped into my life when I claimed it as my life. And I stopped living for the standards of society. And I stepped into my life when things began to look unconventional. And I started swimming against the sea, against the current. Mm-hmm. That is when I got my naysayers. That is when I got this arena of people that were maybe on the outside, like looking at me like, what are you guys doing? And I would say it started about 10 years ago when I went on a mission trip. And then we started adopting. And I stepped into my life really when I laid it all down and I said, no more of living through the eyes of somebody else. Live through what is important to our family. And life is meant to be lived and it's meant to be changed. Just because I lived in a subdivision a few years ago doesn't mean I have to live there forever. It was beautiful, but it's okay to pick up my entire family during COVID and move to out in the country and then decide maybe we want to be hobby farmers. It's okay because it is what I want to do, what my husband wants to do, what God has called us to do. So every day we step into our life when we start being who we are called to be.
I love that. Thank you for sharing, Evie, with us today. Yes. And your entire family and just your heart is one of the most amazing hearts I've ever had the opportunity to meet. So thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Julianne, so much for inviting me.